Awesome. We are live. Hey, everybody. How are you? Welcome to Into the Core podcast. You are with myself, Linda, and I have two special, amazing guests who are going to be joining us in just a few seconds. I'm going to introduce them properly and formally. But you know what we do before we always start our show? I usually just go in and make sure that we put our intro through just because I feel like it's very cool and it makes me look very professional. So here we go. We're going to do our intro. Into the core.
Get into it.
All good things in Africa and beyond. Into the core.
Get into
Into the core. All good things in Africa and beyond. Talking about all good things in Africa and beyond, I have two amazing souls who are definitely in Africa, and they are definitely, well, one's in New York, but you know, she's African origin. So they're doing amazing things, and I was introduced to them by an amazing person who I met in 2018 and was part of my fashion installation here in Nairobi, Tokyo James. So sending shout out number one to Tokyo James, and thank you so much for hanging up on me and telling me these are the two people that you need to talk to, get your life together and move forward. So I would love to introduce Udochi. She's absolutely fantastic. I start with the ladies first, Papa. So I'll start with Udochi. She's absolutely fantastic. Made to order. You guys need to look that up, understand what it's about. And I think it's a prime movement. I feel like you don't talk about that at all, but we're going to talk about it.
Yes,
And
we'll
then of
talk about
course,
that.
head designer Max Aviv. He's absolutely fantastic. He's got is it Papa O Studios? Anyway, you're going to talk to me a little bit about that. He's an absolutely fantastic person, definitely a trendsetter, not a follower. Such are these two beautiful people. So welcome to Into the Core podcast.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for having us.
You're most welcome. So I figured different scenario. I needed it to be like, oh, Zen like. I want to talk about a very unzen space that you guys have been. The last time when we were supposed to have our podcast, there was a lot of stuff that was happening in Nigeria. So, is it possible you could talk to us a little bit about what you like what was happening, what was your experience about it, and where are you now? How are you feeling? Are things being done? So maybe we'll start with Papa because he's based in Nigeria, and
Exactly.
then we'll go into you, Udochi, with your
Sure,
sentiments as a
sure,
diaspora.
sure.
Um, it was a very tough time for the youth in Nigeria in the past 2 months. I think it's almost 2 months now, where everybody was people were protesting NSAP and basically just demanding for better government, stop killing us, stop harassing us, and things like that. And which we all saw how it went from peaceful to the government introducing thugs and finally climaxing on the 20th of October with the whole shootout that happened. But right now, I think things are things are getting better, not with the government, but in terms of the peace in the city or in Nigeria. So on NSAS related issues, they're still pressing charges, trying to find out what exactly happened, and lies over lies over lies over lies, trying to cover up their own parts and things like that. But right now,
Yeah.
people know better, and everybody is coming out to speak now. So I don't think the things that we're facing before we're going to be facing them the way we're facing them. before. So probably be facing them in a new way. They have to formulate a new way to terrorize people or to do the things that they want to do.
Yeah.
Wow. And what is the sentiment of it right now? I mean, like, how are you feeling? Are you feeling that the government is? I know that there's always cover-ups and everything, but then are you guys feeling a little bit more settled in the fact that you made a statement, you made a point, and now they understand that you guys also mean business. You can't just black out a country and go ahead and do what they did, which is just unmentionable. And I'm not going to give them the platform or the time to mention what they did because it was sickening. So, you know, are
Yes,
you
I mean,
feeling?
they do know now that the youth mean business. Like, it's not going to be a business as usual. Like everybody is standing up for their rights now. People are demanding for better life, better governance, and just a safer environment to be in. I think, like I said, I believe that people are not going to be terrorized the way they were terrorized before. They have to come up with a better plan of how to terrorize people right now. They're not just going to be. I don't think. And I don't think we are just going to be stopped on the road and harassed the way you were harassed before. They might
Yeah.
still harass, but I think that they will not just going to be as easy as it was before because we now know that people know their rights. People know people are going to fight back. So it's not going to happen like the way it was happening before anymore, which is a good thing that we're fighting for.
Yeah.
That's that's good. Udochi, what were your sentiments when you were sitting on the outside,
Yeah.
from New
Yeah.
York? And
Yeah.
because she's based in New York, I mean, obviously there was so much going on. You've got a lot of
Mm-hmm.
affiliates, you've got a lot of partners who are in Nigeria.
Exactly.
What was
Exactly.
that? What was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, how were you feeling about it?
Yeah. I think it was an interesting period, definitely. I think initially I was euphoric. I was so happy about what was happening because like has been said before, it was still needed. Before being in New York, I had spent about 5, 6 years in Nigeria. So even though I'm not there now, I'm very much well aware of what the challenges are, what the situation is on ground. And as people have also said, NSARS is just one aspect of the many issues that we have, not just in Nigeria, but just like across Africa, really.
Global. Yeah,
It's
well,
just,
yeah.
it's just like the very, very tip of the iceberg. And it's just like the easiest thing I think to pick, to kind of to touch on in terms of abuse and injustice in Africa. So I think for me, I was so happy when the protest started at the Lekki toll gate. I actually live minutes from the Lekki toll gate. I could actually walk to my house when I lived in Nigeria. So I felt like I was really kind of, even though I wasn't there, I was posting online, I was engaged, I was excited that things were going to happen. The youth were,
Yeah.
providing their own resources, being organized. So many good things were happening, and I was so happy. I was like, "Oh my God, it's finally happening! Thank you, Jesus." And then, as Papa said, October 20th, I was online, and suddenly someone told me, "Get on this particular person's Instagram account. There's something happening," and I was so happy with it. I was physically like weak for like a whole day after what happened because it just doesn't make sense what happened. You hear about people protesting peacefully, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, the government comes in and starts shooting innocent people, people who could have been my friends, people who could have been people I worked with. So it was difficult, and I think it's still difficult just seeing the way everything played out and the way things are
Yeah.
still playing. But at the same time, I'm hopeful because I think some good came out of it. We got a lot of international attention because of what happened, and I
Yeah.
think that gives us some hope that there are people now paying a bit of attention, and the government sees that they can't do as they have done in the past and necessarily sweep everything under the rug. There was a CNN investigation that came out, I think about a couple of weeks ago, that looked further into what happened and basically backed up all the things that the protesters were saying. Initially, the government said that they hadn't got the army, but they found out that they actually did call for the army to come in and try to disperse the protesters. So I think it's bittersweet. It's bitter in that what could have come out of it. wasn't fully realized. But at the same time, I think that the lessons that we learned in terms of how we can engage, how everybody was able to pull together, whether they were in Nigeria, whether they were international, that showed that there's power in our voice. And my hope is that even as things kind of seem to be quiet now, my hope is that there's still something happening, that people are still trying to figure out how we can continue this movement because things have not changed. Things are just a bit quiet now. And I think we need to continue to push, not just, again, like I said, for NSARS, but also what we're doing, Buy Pan African Fashion. I think that anywhere there's no check on power, on people who are working in a particular space, when there are no checks on power, and there's a tendency for there to be abuse. So I think, looks like we've lost Papa.
No, he's coming back. He's just
Okay.
trying to check something. All right, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that's the role that we need to play. First of all, for us in our industry, we need to be a voice to encourage us to also speak up. And within African society in general, and within Africa, each of us needs to know that things are not going to change unless we speak up. And it's hard, it's difficult.
Of
I think at
course.
least I need to be where I am and ask people to speak up and not ask for change. People's lives are being threatened when they were asking for change in just recently in Nigeria. People's bank accounts were blocked on direct,
Wow.
as was revealed from the CBN because they were helping protesters. So
Wow.
these are real issues. But I think we have to do what we have to do, which is just to speak up as much as we can and try and work together. Because if not, the system, as corrupt and as problematic as some of the things that we see are, will continue as it is, and that's not a long
Wow.
answer.
I I mean, I was my heart completely bled with you. I mean, like
Hmm.
when we were hearing, reading, watching what was happening in Nigeria, and
Yeah,
I really, the moment you told me, Linda, I don't think I can even carry a conversation while,
yeah,
I'm watching my brothers and my sisters going through,
exactly, exactly.
such a horrible situation.
Hmm.
And I completely understood it. I just remember thinking to myself, I was like, my gosh, I mean, like, what can we do? Even
Yeah,
from out here, we're like, so
exactly.
how do we participate? I mean, other than just shed light to it. And, I said, even if it's a minute of saying the reasons why we didn't do the podcast on that day, it was really
Yeah.
important for people to
Yeah,
understand that
and
SARS
we
had to
appreciated that
end.
support,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, that was so
yeah,
helpful. That's what it has to be. We have to be each other's keepers. Just because it's not happening in my country or my sector of the world doesn't mean that I can also advocate and also be a voice to help push things forward in the right direction. That was great.
absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Talk to me a little bit about, I'm gonna go into something different. I know
Yeah,
Papa is gonna be back in a few seconds. I'm giving him his space for this. Um, but it's us ladies having a candid chat right now.
sure.
So, it's about something that's going on that has
Mm,
recently happened. If you don't want to comment about it, I completely understand. But
sure. Sure.
what is going on with Arise and the complaints? And I was like,
Yes. Yeah.
literally like
Yeah.
tipping my hat because this is something that happens in every fashion industry. It
Mm-hmm.
is, models and payments and the hours,
Yeah.
sponsors not even wanting to pay the amounts that they should be paying
Mm-hmm.
because at the same time you're trying to be equal with what the models are getting, but then again,
Yeah.
you're not getting enough money to pay
Mm-hmm.
them their worth. You know their
Mm-hmm.
worth. But
Mm-hmm.
what has been going on with the rise? What's with the complaints? What is with it's something that happens here in Kenya.
Yeah, sure.
It's something that happens, I know, in South Africa because somebody was actually talking to me about it
Yeah.
last night.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts?
So Arise. I think that we have great fashion platforms here in Africa.
Yeah.
Arise is one of them. When I came to Nigeria in 2012, Arise was actually the very first fashion show I went to, and I was blown away. I was just like, wow, I think I can probably attribute that to my one of the reasons that I became more interested in fashion in the African sector. So Arise has been really kind of been at the forefront in terms of how much work and how much work they really put into their fashion page. So when they announced the 30 under 30 program this year, I was like, great, that's such a that's a great program, a great way to kind of bring some fresh air into kind of the fashion segment, particularly given the year that we've had. Everybody just wants something different, something fresh. Um, so I will have to say I definitely had some high hopes for what it may look like. Um, and particularly given that they had so many judges, I applauded them for that, having a diverse pool of judges to also, to score the competition. Um, and again, I was surprised when early this week I started seeing the complaints coming in. It was Papa that started sending them to me because he's on ground, he's connected to people there a lot more than I am. And he was like, look, this is what's going on. People are saying that things don't look fair again in the industry. Um, so I think we got a lot of complaints sent in to us, and some of them were along the sides of the designers that had been chosen to move on. And even the designer that won, kind of Izzy, everybody says he's great, you know. Um, but there were some questions as to whether or not he should have been included in that pool. That's something that I think that there can be a lot of discussion about. But I think which I think what you want to focus more on is the issues that the models brought up along how they were being paid, how much work they put in, and particularly also in comparison to maybe international models that. Um, so I think I think definitely it's important that we ensure that people are being treated fairly, that pay that people are given is compensations in a way that makes them feel like they're valued. Um,
Yeah.
and I know you've mentioned that this happens across um, many fashion industries, and I think that's true.
Yeah.
The fashion industry, I don't think some of the abuses that we've noticed here is unique to Africa, in particular to Nigeria. But I think at the same time, it's important that we continue to talk about issues like this. I don't think there's one side to any story. I think it's about not being afraid to have this conversation, hearing both sides, and coming to something that is workable. Um, so I think that's really the role that we're trying to play to ensure that those people who feel like they've been marginalized feel like they're being heard. And also at the same time, give those who are kind of more decision makers also an opportunity to speak out and, um, if possible, make remedies where needed. Because I think nobody's going to get it perfect. And I think
Yeah.
it's about us having that level of, I think, understanding for each other and giving each other space to learn. I think
Yeah.
it's important to speak out, but at the same time, we all need to come together um, and come to something that is workable, not just for one side, but for everyone.
But
And
for
I think
everyone.
that's what we're trying to do in diet in African fashion. We have reached out to some of the organizers to try and get them to also share their point of view. Um, because, like I said, I think it's important to hear this type of story and come
I I am
to
happy to give you South Africa Fashion Week. Lucilla
awesome.
is
I think
absolutely
I
fantastic.
think the more other organizers see some people taking steps to get into that conversation and not be afraid to address it and fix issues that might be at work in their system, then others
Yeah,
will also feel encouraged because this is our industry, this is our continent, you know. And one thing I keep
absolutely.
on saying is that our industry is still growing and still young. It's not as established as some others across the globe. And that can be seen as not that great, but I think it can also be a positive because it means that we have the opportunity now to do things right, you know, and set the right
Yeah.
structure and foundation for our industry. So I think we shouldn't just copy and paste what other people are doing if that's what we're doing, and we shouldn't shy away from having this conversation. Um, but I think a rise has happened soon.
You know what?
Everybody put
Y-
together.
y- you know what? He's back. So you know what? I'm
Hey,
gonna,
I
as I
was
said,
waiting for it, I couldn't come on. Network, I have to switch over to another network.
It's okay,
no,
Papa.
that is fine. That is fine, Papa. So listen, even before I even get the opinion from the guy who's on the home ground, the guy who's
Yes,
got like, he's heard a little bit of the chatter. One thing,
yes.
and I'll also be very happy to give you our Kenya Fashion Council that is here because I know they are also demanding change. They're
Hmm.
demanding
We have to all
for
work together.
people, well, yes,
Yeah,
exactly, for
yeah,
people to have a clear way to work forward. So,
yeah,
I give that to our industry here in Kenya that they are trying their very best to make sure that we're okay. But,
yeah.
I'll tell you one thing that's interesting, and I hope that also while you go in and you ask the question about, this whole, it is part of the bias in fashion,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know
it is. Yeah.
we ask a very clear cut question to people. When we are seeking sponsorship, and I say this as a person who has also curated at the Hub of Africa in Ethiopia and now here in Kenya, when we ask for sponsorship, sometimes it's not for me to go and buy a Range Rover
Mm.
and to look
Totally not.
cute and to pop champagne and to be like, yes, girl, we did this. Selfie
Yeah,
time, shall we? No, it is not about that. The truth is, you've got so many back end. Um, you have to pay for the lighting. You have to pay for
operations. Yeah, exactly,
for the
exactly.
stage, sound, lighting, which does not come at a pretty penny. It costs a
Hmm.
lot of money.
Yeah,
And then you want to fairly pay the people who come in with the skills that you're
exactly,
seeking. You
exactly.
know, it is always, I'm tired of $1 trillion industry being looked at. Oh, it's just you people in fashion.
Hmm.
Oh, it's just another fashion event, where there's going to be cute
Exactly.
girls walking up and down and it's going to
Entertainment.
be done.
Exactly.
Because that's not what it is.
Hmm.
If we're going to
Yeah.
put people to task and brands to understand it, and the reason why on the international front people pay a lot of money is because there's expectations that are set for these young women when they walk for the brands. They represent Max Aviv. So I wouldn't expect that Papa is going to be like out there saying, oh yeah, this model is wearing my brand, but look at how, trashy she's looking. No, there's an expectation that also comes with that, with wearing the brand, the look, the feel, the
Yeah.
message that you're sending, and then as well as paying the models what they're worth. If
Hmm.
we don't, and this is just a question, if we don't get the money, and I ask this now to Papa, if we don't get the money, we want to put on this event, we want to do something, and we say, Papa, can you pay for the models? Equal pay, because we know that in New York, a lot of brands, they demand from the agencies, they want to see particular girls on their runway show, and they go as far as saying, you know what? I am paying the agency this amount of money for them to come and walk my show because that's how important it is for them to look at my brand. What do you think, Papa? I mean, like, yes, it is New York Fashion Week. Yes, it is Arise or Nigeria Fashion Design Week, or it is Kenya Fashion Week. You
Yeah.
know, but what is the demand of the designers? I just want you to think on your side what your demands would be.
I mean, for my brand particular, I can only talk about my brand. Basically, what I do is that with my brand, I tend to use a whole lot of new faces, and the reason being, uh, is that giving other models opportunities that Fashion Week was not given to them, has not given to them, or was not going to give to them because um, there's only a certain numbers of models that Fashion Week can hire. So what
Mm.
happened to the other models that would like to work on the show? So I now give those other models options of, yeah, come for my casting. If you make my cut, then you can still say that, oh, I'm a part of this fashion week. It's not been easy, trust me, because I'm already having issues with the fashion week saying that, oh, you're going to do another, because I show my sometimes my collections are on the up to kilo. So you're going to be bringing another set of maybe like 40 to 50 models again. But I have to now bear the brunt of that because I now have to talk about their feeding, I have to talk about their transportation, the payment, I have to talk about the hair and makeup for them, the tent, all those things that I have to now provide before the fashion logo now say, you know what, yeah, you can have this because it's more like having an upside show what I do basically. So I now tend to use new models, new couple of models every other time. So I do my casting
Mm.
outside. So with that, that is the way I do my thing. But yeah, I believe everybody should be given a fair chance to things. Like it shouldn't be like, oh, we're only selecting you because you are from this agency or this agency owner is the head of the casting for this particular project. So I'm going to make sure that my agency take a larger bit or larger cut of it. It's not based on
Wow.
what exactly the client wants and what kind of looks we're looking for. So I think if we are not using those kind of sentiments in selecting models and are trying as much as possible to give people opportunities and chances to be able to see their career flourish, then I think here we'll start to begin something good.
I think that is such a well answered question. I mean, like I'm thinking about both the perspectives, and in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, and this is part of the whole bias again
Hmm.
within the fashion industry. I want to move forward. We can always come back into the topic at hand, in terms of fair pay for models, visibility for the models that, Papa will want us to work with, and the works, if Linda's doing and working with brands like Crafted or Antcon, how do we become part of the process, and put a task to make sure that,
Yeah.
there's fair pay in the works. But let's
I
talk
actually
about
want to say,
something.
can I say
Yeah,
something
go
else
ahead.
about that?
Please.
Actually,
Go.
also, I guess just on the rise. I think one thing that struck me was the amount of um, press that Arise is able to kind of pull, particularly because they're able to engage a lot of high profile figures in the work that they're doing. Naomi Campbell is one particular friend of Arise that has been at their shows at least a couple of times, if not more, now. Um, and Tour was also gave an online address during Arise Fashion Week this past weekend. So they're definitely connected, and um, I think in as much as they're connected, I think there's also a bit of responsibility that has to fall on these individuals that they um, collate. I think to give a bit of legitimacy to their thoughts. So I think it definitely helps when you hear that Naomi is going to be at a show. It helps not just for locally but also internationally to give some credibility to what's being done. So I think, in as much as we talk about what platforms like Rise and internally in the industry we can do, I think there's also a bit of responsibility on these figures that they bring in to one ensure that things are being done well. um, Before I think they even sign on to take part in these on these platforms and these shows, and even after, if something doesn't seem right, for example, on the issue of fair pay for the models, can maybe Naomi, for example, come in and say, "Hey, can I offer to, you know, uh, support somehow or give a bit more to these models who have worked so hard and I'm thinking that we weren't paid enough." Because I personally because I want to encourage African fashion system. This is my way of also contributing in some way because I've been pulled into this now. Can maybe Anne Wintour maybe say it's important for there to be transparency in the way things like these are judged so that also they're lending their voice in that way. So I think my point is just that as much as we talk about our industry internally, I think those who are also being pulled in internationally also need to be aware of what's happening and also make sure they're doing their homework and doing their research and also following up properly to ensure that things are done well for these platforms that they're lending their voices and their profile behind.
I really love what you have mentioned because I think it's absolutely it is so necessary that if you do have one of the highest paid black women on your
Mm-hmm.
platform speaking for the modeling agencies and the modeling world and saying that, hey, guess what? Things in Nigeria are really up and coming and the fashion industry is booming. And then 2 days later, everyone's just like,
Exactly.
what? I'm sorry, what just happened? Naomi was
Yeah.
just talking about how amazing, the African industry is, and the Rise has done this. I just feel like we just need to take, even when they're coming onto a project, to put them to task and say, listen, how much should
Yeah.
I be paid? How much were you being paid when you were walking? We're not doing a
Mm-hmm.
comparison, but we would like to try and match up to
Exactly.
it
Exactly.
because remember we're accelerating the livelihoods of these young up and
Mm-hmm.
coming or these models who are working for us and representing our
Exactly.
brands. It is
Exactly.
so important to treat them equally and to
Mm-hmm.
have a respect for livelihood because guess what?
Exactly.
They don't all live at home with their mommies. They have rent
And
to
even if they
pay.
do, that's their choice. Even if they
They
do,
have,
still pay
and
them,
probably coming
once
from
they
an
do
African mother's house, you'll be like, "Where is your rent for this month? You're supposed to be contributing. You just worked with
Yeah.
Naomi Campbell. Where's the money?"
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so they've got rent to pay. They've got food to put on the table, and it cuts across in
Mm-hmm.
everything that we're
Yeah.
doing. That we need to be a little bit more responsible. Talk
Yeah.
to me about why you and Papa started Bias and Kindly. I'll start with Papa this time, but
Yeah.
tell me why it came about. What was a trigger moment that you guys said, what is this whole thing with bias? We need to put, you guys basically have kind of nailed it, and then after that, I remember Black Lives Matter came through, and we were like,
Mhm.
okay, but what was that about? How did that come about? So, Papa, I'm gonna ask you to go first.
It was about the whole coming out, speaking up movement, where everything was just happening. When coronavirus hit, people had so much time to see the bullshits that they were not seeing enough before. So everybody started picking things out, like that's actually not cool. Like, what were we thinking of? Like, why were we just accepting people to just do this to us? Because the whole pandemic made people have enough time to think because before you probably are thinking about how to get to work, then the next day, and maybe the little bank holidays in the year is not enough for you to even rest, not to talk of. Yeah, so but coronavirus now came, the first pandemic that was going to shut everywhere down in our lifetime, and people now had more than enough time to be like, you know what, let me now start checking all the receipts of all the foods I've gotten in the past. So we had the time. So people were picking up things, and the internet was just blazing. And I was having a conversation with a friend who was trying to let me understand what racism, systemic racism is, and how it actually affects me. And he was trying to use scenarios of how uh, when we travel for Fashion Week, maybe in the UK or in Cape Town, and the events that happened, and how I didn't think it was racist, and really thought it was racist. So it was
Yeah.
it was just fine. We're having this conversation over and over again. I just thought to myself, like, you know what? This same thing is similar to what is happening around me because at the end of the day, I'm not from a rich background. and I had to walk step by step, bit by bit to where I am right now, with no little to no assistance or help from anyone. So, and I just thought about everything. So I just woke up that morning, I wrote something down, and I decided to post it. And something that happened on BOF, someone was saying something on BOF, and someone was not commenting, and they were mentioning brand's name and everything. And I'm like, so how come my brand wasn't mentioned? Like, why is it that all these
Right?
brands that don't tally with what BOF is talking about, that they're asking you to mention people's name or something like that? That my brand is not mentioned, and you guys are just trying to take the glory away from the fact that I am actually one of the pioneers in, or if not the pioneer in this sector. So I screenshot that and I added it to the post because I've written that thing before I saw that post. And I just combined everything and just posted it. Then I posted it, then Udochi saw it and she just called me up immediately. She messaged me like, oh, like, what's happening? And just explaining to her, and she was like, yeah, we need to do something about it. And that's how it started.
I think it's brilliant again to put to task the reason why when somebody says something, how
Mm-hmm.
impactful and meaningful, if you don't know who Papa is, then that becomes the question where you're just like, oh yeah, they were just talking about other people. It doesn't really matter for me. But the truth is, when you're trying to build yourself, build a community, be taken seriously, Beyonce is out there supporting or saying that she's supporting African fashion brands and everything, and there's all these designers who've been curated by her stylist. I'm like, okay, so, but what more can you say about these brands? You know, you can't
Mm-hmm.
just list them and then walk away.
Yeah.
Listing
Yeah.
them is great, but if you're not
Yeah.
speaking
Like
about
it's
them,
like,
that is a whole other different element to it. I'm like,
mm-hmm.
don't say like I bow down to you for the African designers because black is king. Sorry, Beehive, don't come for me. I'm just talking about it. You know, I basically just would love to see her not just mention two or three brands. Anybody who you've listed, it would have been really nice to hear even the back end of the reason why she thought that they ought to be. Like every
Mm.
2 days, post the designer and say, you know what, I really loved her structure. I loved this about her. I love this about her. I love her color selections. I really think that she's dope. I think that
Yeah.
you guys need to go in, support, love, and then you come back and tell me if you love her too. You know,
Yeah.
so I'm not taking away
Exactly.
from the brands that were listed, but I am just saying that I guess my expectation for it, and which is terrible to have expectations anymore anyway, is speak
Stop.
about it. You know what I mean? I'm just like, ah, forget the expectations. Like, throw it in the back drawer. Like, we're going into 2021. Somebody asked me, sorry, I'm just going completely off the road, but somebody asked me,
Stop.
Linda, so what are your plans for 2021? I was like, I had plans for 2020.
Right now, no plans for 2021. Take it as it
So
comes.
2021, I'm walking in with my head held high that I got through 2020.
A day at
And
a time, an hour
you
at a
know what I mean?
time.
A day at a time, God in mind, God first, because anything that we're doing right now, we're just like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We've made it this far,
Yeah.
and we still have ambition to still have these
Yeah.
quality conversations. But I think that's brilliant.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Udochi, before the beehive remembers that I exist, tell me about okay, so you saw his post about
Mhm.
bias and you were
Yeah.
just like, what was the first thing that came to you where you were just like the
I
aha
think
moment of
I think I think being in the US, I think Black Lives Matters was already kind of happening at that time. And even though I'm here, I feel like my heart is always like in Africa and it's always in Nigeria. So I was just like, this is so great. And I think that's also something I realized when I was in Nigeria. I was like, I wish there was, even as much as we say in the US that there isn't as much discussion about race and issues that we have in our country in the US. I think there's even less in Nigeria and many parts of Africa. There's so much of a culture of silence about so many things, you know. And when I was in Nigeria, that's one thing I was like, I wish we could dialogue and talk more about these issues. So as Black Lives Matters was happening in the US, I was just thinking, I really wish that we could also talk about the issues around class, ethnic groups, gender, so many other issues that is not race, but they're still causes of bias in Africa. I was like, I wish we could have these conversations and try and move the needle in the right direction in Nigeria and across the continent. So when I saw Papa's post, having worked a bit also in fashion and seeing the way decisions were made, certain things, I was like, this is so right on. And I think that um, as Papa spoke up, there's so many people who have the same thought. Again, as we saw with a rise that just happened, that just kind of sparked this weekend. Like things come and then they die, they come and they die. I was like, Papa, you need to do something about this. You need to write an article, you need to take it further because if we don't speak up, as I keep on saying, then nothing is gonna change. You know, we're gonna all be in our own silos. So our initial thought was just to just like write an article and talk about how even though race is not an issue, there are so many other causes of bias and unfair practices across Africa and Nigeria. So that's really kind of what sparked it for me, was just the desire to see that drive for change happening in the US and just having the jealousy, you know, that the same thing happened also in Nigeria and Africa. That's what drove me to really push him to try and do a bit more. That's how bias was was born.
You know, I love that because one of the things that we do have is the gap of knowledge and understanding where people sit within an industry. And it's
Yeah,
important to understand the knowledge side of things. So even if you did an article and then you know, and you've been publishing and talking about it and interviewing so many people, that is always the first part of it, is to allow
yeah,
people to be
exactly.
knowledgeable, you
Exactly. Start
know.
the conversations, right?
Yeah.
So
It
yeah.
is know who you are, understand where you're coming from, understand
Yeah.
reasons why you should question certain things.
Mhm.
So for me, it's like a bravo for the, for the models within the industry to say speak up and speak out, ask for
Yeah.
fair pay and the
Mhm.
works.
Yeah.
You know, in Africa, we're still suffering from we don't pay per hour.
Mhm.
And that per hour is the reason why, there's so much, you know, I don't want to say that there's so much, well, there is that bias. Because
Mhm.
when you take a model from Nigeria, a model from Ethiopia, a model from Kenya, and you put them all in Paris or in New York, they'll be told, so if you go over these hours, this is how much stipend you're going to be paid extra
Yeah.
because of the time that is represented. If you're going for a go see, you get paid for your go see. If you're
Mhm.
going for just to meet up with the designer because he wants to see something certain about you, you're paid for that time. And
Yeah.
that's what we need to understand, that it's people's time. It is worth their time.
Mhm.
We want the respect within the industry, then we have to respect the industry itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it cuts across the whole board.
Mhm. Yeah.
Photographers, models,
Exactly.
designers, lighting people, anybody
Mhm.
who's even getting me coffee for my coffee break just because I
Yeah.
have that time to have coffee.
Exactly.
Everybody needs to understand that you're placed there with purpose.
Exactly.
Something very, very key for you guys, especially when you're talking about bias. What are some
Yeah.
of the things that you feel right now would be the most important? Maybe each of you can highlight two items that somebody can walk away with, even put into their agency, put into their work plan when they're thinking about even 2021. Because everybody's trying to plot out. I'm just like, I'm just gonna have my conversations. We're gonna learn a little bit, and then we can plot out later on should we make it through. So, so what are some of the things that we think? in terms of bias in the industry that we need to take into account as individuals, as companies, as people who just don't even know about the fashion industry? What's a take home from bias within the fashion industry, and how do we take charge and how do we create that change?
Mm, that's a very good question. Hmm.
Anyone,
Papa, do you want to
anyone at this
start
point
or
can go first.
Papa, do you want to go first or?
I think if we want transparency. First of all, personally, I think that's what we want. We want to be able to know how did you get to this number, or how did you get to this selection? How, like, what are the criteria? What was the process like, so that it to be clear for everybody to know. We want people to be able to speak up in terms of, even if you are the employer, you should need to speak up if you need someone. If you are the employee, you still need to speak up if you have issues. We want to be able to understand what exactly is happening, so we know the problems that we have. It is a beautiful thing that the fashion industry in Africa is really, really growing. I mean, when I started 13 years ago, there was really little to none of the fashion industry that was happening around. It was just like a bits and pieces of people making clothes with calabash and things like that that I was seeing around. I don't know about any other person, but that was what I was seeing. So it was just like that. I'm like, "Oh, technically, I don't want to be a designer like this. If this is what designing is, then I don't want to be a part of it." But looking at it now that we can now compete internationally with what our counterparts are the kind of clothing our counterparts are making in Europe, in America, in Asia, it's something beautiful to know that, yeah, we are growing. We're not there yet, but for us to be able to get to that mega industry that we want, then we need to be transparent. We need to be able to know, like, you know what, this and this. I've had jobs before that I was paid less than the other people just because we didn't communicate with each other, and I did more than anyone else, because anyone that knows me knows that whenever I'm in a project, I put all my energy into it. So I ended up doing so much more for these people, and the guys that didn't even do anything are just like, you know what, yeah, it's just about the paycheck for them. They were paid more than I was paid, and I got to know after, because I asked. Imagine if I had asked or we spoke about it before the project, I would have taken on that job. I would have made sure that I was paid the same amount, or G get like equal pay. But it shows that, you know what, people need to actually talk. I need to be able to call you up and say, you know what, you did this project last year. How much are you paid for it? And you'll be willing to tell me about it. I think if we start, so personally, I just think it's transparency. If we start working towards just being more transparent in all the things that we do, I think we're going to be able to start tackling all the biases, or all the places that they can possibly be a bias.
I love that. I really love that, the transparency aspect, the question, the last person who was sitting in this job, what were they being paid? In order for you to understand even the level of, what you think you are worth. A lot of people don't know what they are worth. Not even a tailor knows what they're worth, yet they carry the whole brand. And when I say they carry the whole brand, I mean, like, you know, that they see your concept, they understand who you are. Basically, I have to give credit to Jan Milan because he taught me a very important. This was his statement. I wanted him to come and produce my show in Kenya, and he said, "It's your vision. I'm just going to frame it for you." And that's exactly, when you look at it that way, there's so many, when we approach sponsors, we need to understand why we want the sponsor. Does it make sense to our industry? Does it make sense to our brands? When we pick a face to represent our brands and we ask them to walk down the catwalk, it doesn't have to be one particular agency. What a lot of people do in the European market, in the American market, is that they pick from different agencies, even South Africa, to be honest. They'll pick from different agencies. It's not just one agency that comes in and just carries, the whole job. So there's an equal, there's a little bit of equality in terms of who you're picking, why you're picking them, and why you're working with them. In terms of your tailors, they are taking your vision, Papa, and they're making it into a reality. And they just understand that the quality has to be above all, because if people are going to continue buying from you, they're going to continue being busy, and they're going to continue being, they're going to get their paycheck, you know. Although I do think, if your tailor in 2013 was getting paid $100, they cannot be paid that same $100 in 2020. It is absolutely absurd, So that's just another thing to put to task, And
Yeah.
I know I've heard some complaints, and I'm not just talking about here in Kenya. I'm talking about across the board in Africa. So it's something that we really need to put to task, and just say, stop looking for the cheaper version of something. Go for the sustainable version of everything. You know,
That that
that's
that
that's
that's
me in
why
terms of support.
I just compare everything under transparency because, for example, me and my team, I don't hide my price point for my team. I mean, you have to know because I know how I got to this price point. So I don't have to. So you have to. So you know. So if you think that you're not getting paid enough because I'm selling at this price, then you have to speak up and let me know. Then if it's something that we can now work out, or if it's something that we can't work out, then we will know that, what, it's fine. We could be cool, but we will not be able to work together because our visions are not aligning. So I'm not going to now be hiding those kind of things from you from the beginning. I'm going to make you understand that this is how much you're going to be getting paid, and this is how much I'm selling for, and this is how I got there. If you want to know how I got to how much I'm selling for, then I can let you know how I got there, because it's not just about. I mean, it's not just about the tailors that are making the clothes, but you have to do so many other things to be able to get the clothes in a presentable way that you'll be able to sell at the price point that you want to sell. If it's just about the tailors, then you'll be selling to people like your tailors. But you're not selling to people like your tailors. So you have to be able to do so many other things in terms of branding and packaging and things like that, and brand perception. And all those things too, you have to spend money in them. So there has to be something that's going back into that resource, or those resources that you're going to be using in promoting the brand. So your tailors also have to understand the business of it. So not just because oh it is cool, not just because oh they just feel like oh this is a ridiculous amount that this person is putting on the price point and I'm getting paid this. That is where the issue is. That's where the issue starts from. When people are thinking that oh, so you're selling something for $100 and I'm getting paid $20 for it. Like how is that working? Like how did you get there? But at the end of the day, they need to understand that even that you have retailers that you're working with, and they have to get paid. You have a PR, you have this, you have that, you have so many, you have packaging, you have all these things, you have the light bill to run in the studio, you have the gen, you have all those things to do, you have the rent, all the things has to come together in the cost or in total costing of the product. So I think transparency will just solve our issues because people will understand where they stand and what place they had in a particular setting. So you don't overstep your bounds, and you are respected as much as you respect the company you're working for.
Well said, Papa. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I think it just
Yeah.
speaks to accountability. I mentioned that when there's no accountability, when there's no checks on powers on people in any particular sector or part of the world, there tends to be abuse. But I think with transparency, with you being upfront, you and your team or whoever it is that you're being transparent with can checks on each other. So I think that really sums it up pretty well because it can really address any issue. Um, um, we can talk about cronyism. We can talk about people just inviting their friends and making fashion kind of like a closed circle thing. There's so many issues that we can talk about within our industry that's happening that we can sort of. But I think transparency, as you mentioned, really captures it all in terms of what we need to do to try to solve the problems. We need to talk to each other. We need to be transparent. We need to dialogue. And I think in doing that, we can grow together. We can learn from each other. And if people truly are interested in growing Africa's fashion segment and building our sector and not just doing things for themselves, and I think they're willing to do that and work together for us to make it fair for everyone from across the value chain, from the models to the tailors, those who are doing PR, every aspect of the industry, so that everything can be fair for everyone.
Love it. I really love that. I mean, like, I agree with both of you. And like, Papa, there's that whole 360. The whole brand comes with so many facets in it that all still need that support and, to elevate the brand to where it needs to be. I feel like I need to ask you guys right now, who are you putting to task? Um, in the sense of, in your industry, what is our takeaway? Um, you've spoken right now, the transparency. I think that's absolutely integral. And same thing, Udochi, like we need to support the whole value chain, the whole system. Um, what is our take home as we get into our final minutes of the podcast? What is our take home for somebody who is not involved in fashion, never has been? All they do is just go to a shop, buy a piece of clothing and walk away. What is the one thing you want them to understand about the fashion industry, and why they need to really appreciate um, who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing? Not, we're not in Adam and Eve time, but okay, yeah.
I
But
think I think
yeah, go
no,
ahead,
I
Udochi.
think in terms of the people who are buying, I think definitely try to understand the brand that you're buying from. Do your homework, do your research, um, understand the brand ethos and what they stand for as much as you can. Um, if you can understand how they're being fair with those that work with them, that's great as well. But I think in terms of the African fashion industry, we are a growing sector. There's still so much more for us to do. As much as you can support those who are in your local industry, because there's real value to the work they're doing. But at the same time, um, try and be proactive in understanding what's happening in the industry and where you can lend your voice and encourage fair practices as much as you can and support the work we're doing. Um, if maybe you hear of a brand or you know of a brand that's not quite doing things the right way, there's nothing wrong with you using your voice as a consumer to also push and support those who are working to make things a bit fairer and accessible for all in the industry. How about last words?
I mean, to everyone, I just think that people should choose more sustainable ways of doing anything. I mean, I understand that not everybody can be deep, like like some people can be like, you know what, just own up to what you are. Like if you're a shallow person, it's a very deep person, but just be sustainable shallow, be sustainable deep. So I mean, I like to own up to their true
I
self and
can't
not
with
deceive
you.
anyone.
Oh, sorry, that's hilarious.
That's
Okay,
what we
go
need.
ahead. Sorry, Papa.
We need those kind of sincerity in things. Like if you're a shallow person, know that yeah, I'm a shallow and I own up to it. And I'm going to be shallow in a sustainable way. And if I'm a deep person, I own up to it and I'm going to be deep in a sustainable way. Just have to be sustainable in the way we do things and understand that, at the end of the day, like we need this industry to work so that everything will be able to, so that we're able to get to where we're going to and everything will be able to come together in the ways that we want. So, because we don't have a manual, we don't have a manual. In African fashion law, we don't have
Yeah.
a manual. We don't have people that have done it in the past that we are not looking at. Like, for example, in the West, they have manuals. They have the people who have succeeded in the past, people who have heritage brands and things like that. The brands are over 50 years, 100
But
years, that they are.
even those are not perfect, so we can't even use they can't
They're
even
not.
be like
Well, at least they have something that they can look up to. But we were starting from scratch, so we don't have those kind of brands around here. So there's nothing you can look up to, like, well, yeah, I want to be like this brand around here because we don't have those kind of brands. So for us to be able to build it, we need to be sustainable in the way we do our things. Because even if you cannot bank on those heritage brands of the West, but still, at least the brands that are coming up from the West, they have like the brands that they can actually say, what, this brand can actually get there, so I can get there. But I really can't say of brands around here that can be like, what, if this African local brand can actually get there and it's been doing so well and it's been consistent and everything like that, and very sustainable for this amount of time. Even before I started, I dreamt of starting my business, then I should be able to. There's nothing like that. So we don't have a manual. So for us to be able to create manual for the future generation, then we need to choose sustainable ways in doing things. And also we need to be able to solve problems as much as we can. Because at the end of the day, we create designs. And to me, a design is a solution to a problem. So if a design of what we think that what we say we create is designs, we call them designs, then we should be able to be solving problems as we are creating them, not just living because we're just doing them because everybody's doing it. So what problems are we solving with that? How is that going to be sustaining us? How is that propelling us into the future? So like I said, if you're shallow, be shallow in a sustainable way. If you are deep, be deep in a sustainable way.
Great, Papa.
You know what? We always love a person, and Udochi, I really I admire you in picking and working and wanting to support an individual like Papa, because I don't think I've heard anybody say, you know what, if you're going to be cheap, but
That's
understand
that's what I
you
love
need to
about
be.
Papa. He's original.
You need to think about the sustainable pleasure. Think about it. Be cheap. It's fine, but figure it out. And if you're going to be expensive with it, then still also keep that in mind. I'm sorry, Papa. That for me, hands down. I'm going to come back into this. I know I'm going to watch it again, and I'm going to put it to task in 2021 in terms of what kind of lifestyle are you leading and how sustainable is it? Is it cheap sustainable, or is it expensive sustainable, and how are you contributing to that conversation? Cheap, and we all have to just stick to our lanes. I think I want a Louis Vuitton future, but I'll tell you what, right now my bank account is just like, hello Linda, I haven't seen you since May, what's going on, what's happening? So I stick to my lane. I would like to be seen in the Louis Vuitton, but I'll tell you what, I'm gonna wear locally made. I'm gonna wear somebody who comes to me with like a $20 budget, and I'm like, I will jump on you, but are you supporting your tailor, and are you paying fair wages? And we're contributing to the SDGs. Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
understand who SDG is, and jump onto that platform. I love you
Exactly.
both. I feel like I need a part two of this because I feel like we haven't really even covered the surface, and
There's a
we're
lot
at
to
an
talk about,
hour.
definitely. And you're joining us in the
Um,
work, so definitely we're gonna have many parts too.
hey, you know what? I will say that I'm just really excited to be
Yeah,
possibly working with you and to
yeah,
jump in on this beautiful movement that you guys have.
yeah,
It's an honor. I feel
yeah,
privileged. I feel
yeah.
very humbled by it because I feel like there's a lot that we can do together. It starts with
Yeah.
one, two, three people, and soon we'll have a
Exactly,
movement.
exactly,
You know,
exactly. Across
I
different
really
sectors, different regions of Africa. So yeah, very important. Yeah,
I'm so today is a good day. It is
yeah,
the 16th of December. What a beautiful way to have a podcast during this time.
I
I'm
know.
excited to have been introduced to you. I'm
Yeah,
so
thank you to
so
Tokyo.
I'm honored.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you
Pleasure.
for having me.
And we're gonna stay engaged definitely. So looking forward to continue to
Absolutely.
support more and continue the conversation. So thank you so much. And
You
people
know
should follow
what?
us. on Instagram, Bias African Fashion. Join the movement. Join the work that we're doing. And on Twitter, I think we'll probably post this later. I think it's Bias African Fashion. SHN. So we'll post that later.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Papa, last words.
Thank you so much for having us. I mean, like Udochi has said, she well basically yeah that's it for me. Thank you for having us, and you can always check us out and send us
Oh,
insights or everything on Instagram or email bias and Africans fashion at gmail.com and also on Instagram at bias and African fashion.
let's contribute to the conversation, people. And you know what? I'm just thinking of a t-shirt line, once I join in with you guys. Like,
Look
are you
forward to
cheap
it.
sustainable or are you an expensive sustainable? Pick your side. Just be sustainable. All right. I love you guys so much. Sending you love. Mwah, mwah,
Take
mwah.
care.
And
Thank
we'll
you so
talk
much.
soon. All
Bye.
Bye.
right. Cheers, everyone. Thank you so much. Woo! Did I just? No, I didn't end it.